for being here. Thank you. We will get started. We're at the right time here. Okay, quickly, welcome. I note the existence of a quorum. In fact, I know perfect attendance, which is incredible. We let the minutes reflect the names of the members who are present. Approval of the agenda. Agenda circulated last week. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda?
None.
Any? I have a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated.
I'll move it.
Second. I don't hear any opposition. We will consider the agenda adopted by unanimous consent. Approval of the minutes of the March 13 meeting. Those also circulated. Does anybody have anything they want to propose as a change to the minutes as they were originally drafted? If not, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
Motion to adopt the minutes.
And second.
Second.
Okay, not hearing any opposition, we will consider the minutes of the March meeting adopted as circulated. So the focus of our meeting today, I hope, will be consideration of the draft report that was circulated. I'm hoping that we could spend most of our time on areas where we feel there are substantive issues or discussion about rationale or things that don't reflect necessarily the things we thought we voted on at our last meeting. Of course, we're welcome to take editorial and suggestions and comments, so forth. I'm hoping to do most of that via email because it's probably a lot easier and a better use of our time. But if we have time for that, we can do that either during the meeting or you could hand me written editorial suggestions or comments here if you have them with you. We can do that several ways, but hopefully we'll spend our time talking about substance. So we'll go through.
Jim, can I just make one comment before we go into substance?
Sure.
I just want to thank you for the really excellent job that you did in combining all our pieces and filling in the gaps for everyone. I really appreciate your work on this. I mean, you've done a splendid job, and I just wanted to acknowledge you in front of, thank you in front of the group. So
Amen.
your
Thank you.
work was well
That's-
appreciated. Thank you.
That's very kind. I always tell people when we talk about it, I had really good mentors in my career, and I thank them because anything I do couldn't be possible without the kind of guidance I had in my career to learn how to write and work on stuff like this. I appreciate that. I broke up our time into equal segments. When we talk about the work of Group 1 and the direct election of voters of the council president and the term of the president on that issue. Do we have folks who want to talk about that section of the report, comment on how it was drafted and what they think it says or should say? Questions, comments, anything on that?
Maybe go over any typos that we think.
I prefer to do typos outside of the meeting.
Okay.
We could do, I'm sure there are lots of typos.
Okay.
My eyesight and my typing skills are both poor. So.
I thought I'll start with Group 1. I thought it accurately reflected the discussion, the pros and cons, and how we voted and our recommendations.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I also want to be sure that after reading the draft, those who voted on it at the last meeting still want to maintain their votes exactly in the same positions. We don't have anybody who read it and going, "Oh my God, I made a mistake. I want to switch side." I'm sure everybody's comfortable that their votes are the way they were and it will remain that way.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, not hearing any objections, we will consider the work on that section pretty much done except for typos and editorial suggestions that you can either give me this morning or send me later. Okay. We're calling Group 3, requirements for approval of the budget and revenue matters under Charter Section 305, same basic issue. Does anybody have discussion they want to start on the substance and the contents of the report? I see we're going to all have an early brunch this morning.
No
Okay.
comments.
Sure thing. Can I say that the comments that you provided, Jim, were very helpful. And I responded back within our group to what I thought was appropriate response. I know that Dylan made some editorial changes later. And there, we have an opposition memo from one of the commission members on this issue. And I think it would be wise for us to consider separating the three parts of that proposal into, in essence, two. The one being the change in the voting requirement for the first two budget issues, which are the consumer price index and the affordability guidelines. There does not seem to be any significant difference between the two in actual impact. And when we talked to the Deputy Director of Budget, he couldn't give us a rationale for why they're different. And so making them the same to me makes sense. And making them both 2/3 makes sense for the reason that we think that having 2/3 instead of a solid number provides some better flexibility down the road. But I think that we probably should treat the change in the personal property income tax as a third rail and not try to touch it. That there was a vote on it within the county. The voters clearly expressed their opinion. They're not likely to change it. And it would be hard for us to give them any good rationale for why they should. And so I think we should just concentrate on making the change to the voting requirement for the CPI and the affordability guidelines and let the property tax alone. Leave that to continue to be unanimous.
All right, well, sorry, correct me if I'm not getting it right, but the original question as we phrased it was, in this one section, should all these three things be the same? And there were 8 votes for all 3 things being the same. And you're proposing another option, which would be 2 of the things should be moved to be the same, and 1 of them should stay as is, which would be a separate question.
It is.
And we could write that up as a separate section, but I think first thing would be probably be in order is to take a vote on whether we have a significant number of people who want that to be an option that they would vote to recommend. Does that make sense? That if we have a majority of people who want to recommend that as a second option, as an extra option or different option, we'd have to do that before it would make sense to write it up that way. And then if not, then David, you would certainly be able and capable of writing that up as an option that you want to propose, even if you have only yourself or 1 or 2 other people who want to vote that way.
Okay.
Yeah, David, I have a question. You know, in the last 3 or 4 months, we've talked about the logical sense of having 2/3 for the entire section of 305.
Right.
And I guess at this point, if we did make a change, if there was a reconsideration of the tax section, reverting back to unanimous, it seems to me it might be a little premature if we're doing it just because the council we may get some blowback or some feedback from the council. So I think the initial thought was it makes perfectly good sense to have the entire section of 305 being 2/3, and then letting it, you know, proposing that as a recommendation, and then you know, I suppose between now and the time that the ballot issue might have to be considered, we'll have another opportunity to get feedback from the council. So the commission's position at this point would be to do something that's logical, and that perhaps that makes it more efficient, you know, the whole process more efficient. So I guess I'm arguing, you know, I would, ask the question to you. Do you have a strong feeling that really is a rationale to separate the tax issue? If not, if you go back to the initial conversations we've had over the last 3 or 4 months, where the logic of having a equalized voting level for the budget, in other words, 2/3, makes logical sense. And then we'll put it out there, and then over the next couple of months, see what the council feels.
Well,
That makes
and I
more
don't,
sense to me than proposing an 11th hour change, completely different than everything that we've been talking about over the last 3 months. So I would tend to agree.
but there was someone who entered a differing opinion on our proposal that I think we should recognize. I thought you were the one who did it.
Yeah, I'm just going on record and saying I completely oppose this 11th hour suggestion.
Okay.
There's another question, if I could. Sherry, you wrote a opposition, or whatever. And I think we could explain the math, because you were thinking that 2/3 equals 66%. And the way the math would be calculated would be 60, we would round up to the next person. So in other words, if we could look at Jim, I don't know whether we want to move into, we move away from the question that David's raised.
Well, I thought you were, I didn't think you were moving away, but you're telling me you are. I thought you were trying to make another argument.
No, I wanted to respond to the circulation that you do,
Yeah, that Sherry
yeah.
circulated her dissenting view as to why she voted no on making all three the same.
Right. I'd like to respond to that, but maybe we'll come back to.
Yeah, I don't want to leave David's point, because I want to draw some finality to the position. All right. I guess, David, my understanding is this: the 8 votes we have for are 8 votes for having all 3 voting levels be the same. So if you're asking, can I switch my vote from having all 3 to be the same to being opposed to that? Yes, you're certainly welcome to do that. It would be 7 votes for instead of 8. And then you would be joining the 3 on no to that proposal, but you would be also suggesting a second proposal. There would be 2 would be the same and 1 would be different. And for that, I'm willing to put that to a vote. And it's if anybody wants to join you in that position, that you prefer to have 2 be the same and 1 be different. Does that sound right? You want to move your vote from yes to
Well,
no?
If I can make that as a motion, I'm not sure if anyone will second.
Jim, wouldn't it just be a dissenting opinion like Sherry's?
Yeah, so that's what it would be. Howard, I don't think you need anyone to join you in terms of emotion. You're entitled to change your vote all by yourself to say, I no longer want to be a yes for all 3 the same. I want to be a no on all 3 the same. And I want to write a dissent that says, I prefer a different option that nobody joined me on. That's your prerogative.
All right, well, then, so I think that's what I'll do. I agree with the rationale on the other 2 being the same, because there's no rationale for them to be different. But the other 2 were never, to my knowledge, voted on in a general election with strong public support for a change. I'm not sure how the affordability guidelines was created as a requirement, was added to the charter, or maybe it was always in the charter. I'm not sure. And I don't know if there was a vote specifically on the affordability guidelines or a separate vote on the CPI as a benchmark. If there was, then I guess I would have to potentially change my opinion again. I can't understand why there was proposal to make the 2 different. But the third one, there was a vote on. And after consideration, realizing that you and I and Dylan talked about this quite a bit, and thought that 2/3 across the board made sense, I think it's going to be hard for us. If the council wants to go ahead, it's going to be hard to convince the public that it's a change they want to support.
The very fact that it's hard to convince the public is not a reason not to do something. That simply then strategy has to be thought about in terms of convincing the public.
Right.
If that's what we want
But
to
I
do.
think it's easier to convince the public to make the other two the same without muddying the water with the property tax change.
So David, would you be willing to write up a dissenting opinion? And that way the council will see that specific set of arguments, and then they can, in the end, the council has the prerogative to do whatever they like. It would be good for them to be able to see that laid out as an argument.
I can do that. And frankly, the argument for making the other two the same is already the one that's been made.
Uh-huh.
There's
So-
nothing to change for those two. My dissent would be relation to the property tax.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I will look forward to receiving your dissenting opinion. I would really help if you could try to keep within the timeframes that we're working with, which is in the next 4, 5, 6 days. So we
Okay.
basically need to finalize this report by the beginning of next week. But you are also welcome to make a motion now if you want, that we recommend changing to and leaving the tax on the same. I don't know, I agree, I don't know that you'll get a second, but you are welcome to make the motion to see, that's up to you.
Well, I already did make the motion, and so far there's been no second.
Okay,
So I think it's a moot at this
Okay.
point.
okay. Thank you. I look forward to that, and I will throw it in. Now, I will add one personal comment, which is I have been on the fence about whether to write an individual statement of my own that I haven't drafted yet. I feel kind of strongly, I'm sort of the opposite of you, David. I feel kind of strongly about the unanimous consent requirement, even though I don't feel quite as strongly about the other two. The consent thing really bothers me, and I know it bothers a lot of purists and among our elected officials too. I do think there's a political consideration that they weigh, that I don't have the luxury. I have the luxury of not having to weigh because I'm not an elected official. So I may choose to draft something along those lines. And I may also choose to circulate it just for comments to see if you have reactions to it, but
Well, if I could make one additional comment, that the council has the ability to change many other taxes and fees if they need to, with just a simple majority, not even a super majority. They must routinely do that in order to make the budget without changing the property tax. The property taxes that people pay are also affected in a couple different ways. One is by the assessment on their home, which can change without the tax rate being changed. And that's basically a function of the increase in market value of property within the county. And the other is the homestead exemption, which the council, or perhaps the state legislature, I'm not sure which, has the ability to change to the benefit or the detriment of homeowners and possibly business property owners as well. So the change in the tax rate it was obviously important to taxpayers because they understood it and it affected their pocketbooks. And it's not likely, in my mind, that people are going to abandon the ability to keep that nice and tightly controlled. And I also think that when we were proposing making the change, that we had the experience of our United States Congress's inability to meet budget deadlines. And we thought that having a unanimous vote requirement would potentially lead to stalemate and missing the budget deadlines that are in the charter. Apparently our council is much more disciplined than the Congress. in meeting those deadlines. I don't know that there's been an occasion where they have not met them. But again, I think that argues for leaving the property tax alone. So I will write up a dissent and I'll have that to you very soon.
Thank you. Anybody else want to talk about section 305 and Mike do?
Yeah, Sherry, you're right, in drafting your dissent, you were calculating 66%. It's a question for clarification. What in our write-up, we defined 2/3 as 66%, 66.7, or 60, 6.667 rounded.
Mhm.
And then when you apply that to 11, it turns out to be eight council members rather than 7.
Right.
Would that have, in writing your dissent, is that a factor that you
I was
possibly consider?
I would still support that. As you recall, in one of the early drafts that we prepared, I had included a table showing for each number of council members what 2/3 would work out to. You know, that at 11 it's 8, but at 6 it's 4, at 9 it's 6. You know, that it varies, and we chose that partially because the council may increase in size, but also in order for the council to be able to make decisions, even if there's a vacancy on the council. That supermajority number changes based on the number of vacancies. So if you only have 9 members present, you don't have to have 8. You just have to have 6. Which, you know, I don't know how often that occurs, that someone is sick or away on travel and not able to attend a session. But when there is a vacancy for some reason, that the number changes to accommodate that vacancy. And I still continue to support the 66, the 2/3.
Right.
As written as 2/3, not as a percentage, but as 2/3.
Right. I wonder if offline, we'll have a couple of days for perhaps me to communicate with Sherry.
Absolutely, you too.
Okay, and then you might want to tighten up your dissent.
And to add a definitions
Right.
section.
Yeah, I guess.
So we will receive some clarifications possibly, and I will expect those from Sherry. Sherry, if you ultimately conclude you want to leave this, just let me know. I won't.
No, it's not incumbent on the other people who voted no to offer a dissent. They just can vote no.
That's
Correct.
correct. That's correct. I think you have that option. Just let me know if that's what you prefer to do.
Well, I think I'd rather just write a quick dissent that
Okay.
lays
It's fine.
again for the benefit of the council's consideration.
Anything anybody else wants to raise on Charter Section 305? Going once, going twice. Okay, we will move on to executive appointments of non-merit positions under 215. Okay, does anybody have anything specific they want to talk about with respect to the discussion of 215 in the report? Anybody annoyed that I wrote 2 dissents? Okay, that's good too. This may be our fastest meeting in history. All right, not hearing any requests to discuss 215. Let's move on. Is there anybody who wants to comment or talk about any other aspect of this report, the introductory material, anything else? I don't like the table of contents. I promise you the type size in this document was reduced only because there were some comments in the margins and that just automatically, it will be put back up to 12-point type for readability purposes. I promise you that, because I can't read it when it's this small.
The actual report, all the font, everything will all be the same.
Yeah, I assume that there were parts that were much larger than other parts for no apparent reason.
All right,
What's the next step? Does the staff get it and?
well, that's on our agenda to talk about next. There was your agenda at the bottom has a proposed schedule. The next thing I want to do is talk about that and whether or not we need to have any adjustments. Anybody have any comments on what the proposed schedule looks like? But we can go through it real quickly since we're doing well on time here.
I have the next meeting at April 24th.
Yeah, so we'll get to that because I want to make sure that that date actually works for people and that we do need it. We may not need it under one circumstance, we'll see. Okay. So I was hoping that anybody who still had an individual statement would submit it by this Saturday, so I would have time to look at it. And I don't think we have enough of that to worry about. I guess if folks are going to submit any changes, I think we could combine bullet point 1 and bullet point 2 so that people can submit, whether it's an individual statement or any proposed revisions or suggestions, give people through the weekend. And as long as I have those, you'll see I said Monday at 2. The only reason I said that is because I'm completely unavailable Monday morning and I don't want to force people to think, I had to get it by first thing in the morning. I'm not going to see anything till Monday afternoon. So folks can have until Monday afternoon to submit whatever they want to submit. And then when I get back to my home after late Monday, I will start working on this again and try to incorporate all changes at that point. I don't know how long that'll take me, but it might take me a couple of days to get to everything. So if I could have everything by Monday, I will work on that and try to get what we'll consider a last draft circulated by Friday, the 19th. Does that give people enough time to review it before the 24th, or do you need more time? It depends on people's weekend schedules. I know
That's fine with me, Jim.
that's fine with you. Anybody have a problem with combining with that? Okay. So then expect to receive a final draft of this report on Friday, the 19th. And then it raises the question of how we will vote to adopt this as our report. I originally proposed that we get together like we are this morning on Wednesday, the 24th. If staff has a better idea for how we can have an official adoption or vote other than having an in-face meeting, I mean, I suppose we could do it virtually, but I don't know whether technology-wise that works for y'all.
So I know last time the last commission went through line by line around the room. Like any changes, commas, anything kind of in the report.
Really? Line by line? I'd help.
Everybody reviewed it first at home, came in with their suggestions, proposed it for the room, and then they were.
But were you?
I guess the question is if I'm taking those kinds of comments for the next week or so, I would hope that by the time we get to the April 19th or 20th, we're really just at the point of vote yes or no that you want to issue this report. But I hope we're not still taking line by line comments at that point. But if we are, we are. Leave it to y'all.
No, and I guess it's
I'm
more
willing to be.
just structure of the, like, you could receive all the comments first and then have the meeting and just go through and approve everything, I think is actually more how they did it last time.
Okay,
But they did approve all the changes.
okay. I do think we need to have a formal approval, and I was proposing
Yeah, I was wondering, you were asking whether we should convene.
whether we should
physically.
convene in this room and at this time on Wednesday, the 24th, or whether folks think we could do some sort of an online vote.
I recommend convening.
You
Yeah,
recommend
I
convening?
would like to convene.
Okay,
Just a note on the 24th, there's a new executive director joining the council.
Right.
And that will be their first, like, all hands meeting will be in that morning.
in the morning.
We usually have them at 10, but our current executive director said that may be pushed up just to allow for more time.
All
So
right,
we would be available until 9, I would say, as a worst case scenario, but I just wanted to.
so should we plan on our regular meeting time of 8 with an understanding that we will adjourn by 9 o'clock, if not earlier?
And I'll also know next week what that schedule is gonna look like for
Okay.
us, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, no, I appreciate it.
No one's Shocked.
All right,
Well, are there other rooms we could meet in?
is it,
I mean, we could go back to the 6th.
is this your room for all hands, this room?
Yeah, this would be the room. So we could go back to.
We
the
can go
sixth
back to
floor
the
and
sixth
do it.
floor?
It's just, I don't know, Conda Keely and I would have to step out possibly by 9. It doesn't mean you can't continue to meet and that I can't come and shut the Zoom off after or anything. But I
Is
just,
there a protocol for how we're allowed to meet without y'all?
No, you absolutely can.
Okay. All right, I mean, I'm hoping that it'll be a 10-minute meeting essentially. Right? Everybody vote in favor of issuing the report and we'll go home and we'll pop corks and have champagne or something. It's okay.
Orange.
All right.
So an in-person meeting.
I will be here in person for it. I don't know. Howard and I, whether anybody else.
God willing.
Thank you.
We will still set up the Zoom.
What's that?
We will still set up the Zoom regardless.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I hate
All right. Does anybody else have any matters of business they want to discuss? I'm going to give staff a chance to see if they have anything they wanted to bring up or comment on.
Just to clarify, Jim, that we're able to, within the timeframe of the end of this week, to also propose any typos that we think need to be.
Absolutely. Taking all types.
Oh, okay.
Real quick from staff,
Sure.
this is just FYI, just for your information. Tomorrow, the Government Operations Committee is convening, they have their budget hearings and the Charter Review Commission budget is tiny as it is, it's scheduled for tomorrow. With regard to the report, once we receive it, it is, by law due May 1st to the council, but once you finalize that on the 24th, we can coordinate with Jim directly about how to go about that, but it is due to the council on May 1st.
Okay, well, so on that point, it was my intention that if we vote this on, and you and I can talk about this offline or online, but whatever works for you. That after we vote on the 24th, you tell us what the process is, because you tell me what that involves in terms of production on your end. Typesetting in the old days they used to call it, but I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do to get it out. I know you have to covers and.
well, after you get everything on Monday, I can start putting everything, formatting everything and putting it together. So that we have an all but final report on the Wednesday. And then after that, after the 24th, I'll take it to the printer and.
Okay.
That,
The county's print shop does that.
just on the first floor here, so it's not like it has to, we have to go very far. But it can take a few days to do it, so.
Alright.
If I have it to them by Friday, we would definitely have it by the 1st, but I'll shoot to have it Thursday morning done.
Okay, and then, and I just have this, I don't know, protocol in my mind, because this is how we did it where I work, which is when you're sending a report to a government body, you give them the courtesy of receiving it first and having a chance to read it before you press release it, because you don't want the public to be asking them about something they didn't have a chance to read.
Good
We
point.
owe our report to the council. And it's, in theory, you could tell me, no, it's up to them to publicize it. It's not up to us. I assumed it was up to us, but you tell me, but from history, who has press released this report before, the council or this commission?
I don't know press release wise, it will be published on the Charter Review Commission website.
Right.
Press release wise, I'm not 100% sure. My guess is it will go before, so I will distribute one to every council member. Once the print shop has brought it back, they'll all get one. The agenda for whenever it goes before the council, will have a copy of the commission report as well that will be available to the public. All our agendas have like links on the staff reports, and the staff report would include the full commission report. Who makes it public press release wise, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess the question.
We can check with the communications department on what the protocol is for the release.
Okay.
But I think the point you made is very well taken. And with most things, actually, I think there's even when when the council receives a budget from the, CE, usually there's, you do want to ensure that the body is alerted before it's
public.
So that would be greatly appreciated. Ultimately, once the report is given to the council, there will be an opportunity for the Charter Review Commission to appear, to have a
I was
discussion.
gonna ask about that,
That would
which is, what is,
Be great, that would be.
so what is the?
I believe that is.
I was told it wasn't optional either. Is there a historical precedent for how long they wait before they ask us to appear before them?
I'd have to look in to see what it was.
It so happens that May 1st is right in the midst of all the budget.
I know, they would want to
stuff.
wait. I was going to assume that they wouldn't consider even thinking about it until June.
Correct. So we
Some
can,
people want to plan their June vacations, you know.
You know, what's the deadline if our suggestions get through the council? What's the deadline for getting on the ballot?
August, isn't it?
August, I believe it's August 2nd, the county attorney needs to present the questions to the Board of
It's early
Elections.
August, and so they've tended to have their meetings up to talk about ballot issues at the end of July.
Yeah, they will go on recess the first week of August, so I'd imagine it'd be mid-July at the latest. So that gives them the end of July to wrap up.
And
And that's just speculative, but you know.
I actually did have discussions with the clerk about if this had to get scheduled, then it would have to be sometime in July.
And then the other thing to talk about is if we vote on April 24th to approve this, we have to decide whether we want to jump back in this game in the second Wednesday in May, or you all want to take a break, take May off and come back in June and start all over again. We think you can consider your April 24th meeting as your quid pro quo for getting the second Wednesday in May off. How do folks feel about meeting in May?
Well, I will be in travel from the 7th to the 24th. I can call in on the 8th from whatever location I'm at, but I would not be able to attend in person.
Take a month off.
Let's take a month off. No, I just, you're entitled. So, okay, we'll confirm that on April 24th when we meet, that our next meeting might not be the second Wednesday in May. It might be not until June. We can do that.
Oh. But I also asked if the council wants the commission to meet with it to discuss the report, do all the commissioners need to attend or merely the chairman?
Courtesy.
Huh? I leave that to the invitation of the council. It depends on what they invite or who they ask to appear before. If they ask us all, you're free to do what you please. I can't compel anybody. I was actually going to assume that they didn't ask everybody, that they asked us to send a representative or two. I don't know.
The last one, it was just the chair. I don't know the reasoning on why, whether it was who was invited or.
The last time. it was
Yeah.
just,
But yeah, as I said, I don't know why it was just the chair. I don't know if that's what the,
precedent that would be.
yeah, or if that's who the council invited, but it was just George last time that presented.
So we will check with the council president about on the logistics, when he would prefer to schedule this
Yeah.
and what the attendance expectation would be, just for your planning purposes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, when we get to the final report, we have people who have voted no on individual parts. How do we add the no's together? We're going to vote on the report in its entirety.
We're going to vote, right, since we've already voted on all of our positions and the report has every position stated in it, our next vote will be on issuing this document as the report of the commission as it is with all of the positions stated in it. We'll just be taking one vote on whether to issue the document as a representation of the work of this body over the past 8 months.
Okay.
Okay? Anybody have anything else they want to raise before we adjourn?
I see the orange juice there. I hope someone has a mimosa or something there.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I second that. And anybody opposed? Anybody last call? Nope. Okay, thank you. We're adjourned by unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Right?
So that would have been